All right, welcome to week 6 for the deer hair wing session. This week we're going to do 2 different styles of wings. We're going to do a hackle stacker wing, and we're actually going to do that in 2 different ways using 2 different techniques. One's more technical using a dubbing loop, and the other one's going to be pretty simple using the emerger style wing, which we've already done. So with that said, we can get started. Oh, actually, I was going to mention, I've actually got the back end of the fly. It's going to be we're going to build this the same exact way. So I've already got the back end of the fly built. The wing placement's easier on 2 different things. Plus, I can show you something else if you haven't seen it. Some of you may have, but some of you may have not. So we're going to start our thread about 2 bodkin widths behind the eye. Bring this back into the thorax. Trim out. We just want to double check to make sure we're good. I'm about a bodkin and a half there. I think I can make that work. We'll come back forward to basically where we started. Now, once again, I've already cleaned and stacked my deer hair. And so, if you need to do that, this would be a good place to pause. We want to make the wing, same thing, about the length of the shank. Actually on this, a little bit longer would be easier to tie, although it may not mimic bugs quite as well. We're not changing anything here. 2 loose pin traps over. Just drop this guy down right in place. Pull up with a couple of wraps into the back. Lift that front part of the wing up. Directionally wrap some thread into that base of that wing, just to help get that front side seated. And on this one, we really want to go ahead and take our thread around the base and keep that shank clean. I know we've wrapped thread bases around in the past, but I got a little trick I can show you that may help you, and maybe it doesn't. But I know some people use it. I use it myself, and I know other people use this. So we just want to make sure this is locked in right where it should be. We've got everything flared out front. We can go ahead and just place a wrap through the middle for the compare done wing, or like we did on the compare done wing, I should say. And then lift everything back and force wraps back into that wing. And this should be situated pretty well. Now you can use scissors here if you like, or if you want to try something different, you can get a double-sided razor blade. It needs to be a flex blade so you can bend it. And we'll just lift everything up and just slice right down through it. Now the reason why you don't want to put that thread there is because that blade will slice right through it if you make ever so the slightest mistake. And then I'd like to get this a little bit closer. If you want to work with it beefier like that, you can. It's really up to you. We want to keep all of this in the thorax, and the one thing you want to really be careful of is not to trim this too short, because the wing will pull out if you trim it too short. So you want to be careful of that. Okay, we're going to bring our thread to the back side of the wing and just start to wrap this in. You can see how it drops off right there. That's okay. That's kind of what we covered last week a little bit. We're just going to tie that last little bits of deer hair down. Now this wing is pretty stable at this point. You don't want to pull too tight because there's not much room for error. Okay, so next what we need, and I just had it, is I'm going to use a piece of gold Flashabou. Well, I had a piece pulled and it's blending into my desk somewhere, so I'll just get a new one. But all we're going to do is we're just going to add a little hotspot or tag. Different people call it different things. We're going to put this in right at the base. I think in reality it's more of like a tag or a tip. But as we work this down, we want to get this in line with the inside part of our bend. And right here, what I want to do, I'm putting my finger there, is I'm going to start to place just a few wraps working forward nice and tight to build kind of a little. You can see how the thread's turning darker right there. Just a little bit more of a base to wrap that on. I'm just going to spiral wrap this forward. And we'll just put this tag or tip, hotspot. I mean, people call these things different things. In reality, I believe it's called a tip. And we're going to start to work this forward. Now, if your Flashabou is sliding off of your thread, that's okay. Just kind of add wraps until it comes up onto the thread. And what we're looking to do is make this a little bit bigger than probably normal. And the reason for that is because as we come back doing the body work here in just a minute, we can actually determine how much of that we want exposed. So this just gives you some leeway or playroom here. I'm going to switch my thread so that I've got my Flashabou on the front side. I want to make a few wraps directly over the top, nice and tight like so. See if I can put my finger in the way so you can see it a little better. And then all I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to kind of line this up with the back of that thorax and trim this out. And now we can bring our thread forward. And if the Flashabou is not staying perfect or it's getting wonky and moving all over the place, this is one of those areas that you don't have to really worry about it because the material is so fine and so thin that it'll just wrap and conceal itself. And we're gonna be going back down the shank right now. So what we need to do is we need to put a tag in or a rib, and we're gonna do that using our thread and a dubbing loop. I'll do that again. I'll slow down in case you don't know how to put a dubbing loop in. But all we're gonna do is we're gonna pull out some thread. We're gonna place it around our finger. Boy, sometimes there's just not much room to work. We're gonna bring our thread up to the back side or the opposite side of the shank and then wrap it around the thread base so that we basically have this little teardrop or pendulum, and just place a wrap or two over. And we're going to trim the one side out. And now we're going to bring this guy down. And if you want to build a little taper here, let's do that right now. If you want to build a little taper here, that's fine. You can do that. You can come right back up onto this wing, try to get it to blend all back together. This is really up to you. You can leave that as thin as you like or whatever, because we're going to, the main thing that matters is that we're kind of flush on the bottom for the way the fly is going to sit and look and everything else. So now all we want to do is just make sure we're wrapping this in on the bottom. I'm holding it up top so you can see it, but we want to make sure we're wrapping this in so that it lines up right with the tip that we put in. And then now you're going to work back into that Flashabou to get whatever amount you want exposed. If you want to leave the whole thing, great. If not, fix it right now. I'm going to move to my deer hair, and I'm just going to select some of the longer fibers. We really don't need many, so we just want some longer ones. The somewhat more even of tips that you can find, the better, because you can stack this. I'm not going to stack this. All I'm going to do is come in and pinch these tips and pull everything else out. And in reality, all we need is this is a lot. I got what here, maybe 10, 12, 15. That's too many. You're going to have one really beefy body. So move your fingers and pitch closer to the tips and pull anything else out. So I've just pulled some more. And we want to get down to about 5. Now, if they're splitting like this, what I like to do is just take the one side so they're all lined up the same way. And on something like this, I'll angle them up. You can angle them down. I mean, geez, I'll just do it this way this time so it's angled down. It doesn't matter much. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this up relatively with the length of the shank. You can see overall it's about the length, and there's some short and some long. And this just kind of gives the bug flavor, you know what I mean? It looks like something's exploding coming out of the water. Okay, so we're going to do a pinch wrap right on the back. And when we do this, I'm going to try to move my finger so you can see. But we want to make sure that we're keeping all this hair on the top side. And we want to do 2 wraps right at the stopping point for our tip, like so. And if you need to shorten it up at this point, just keep tension on your bobbin and gently pull. Just very gently pull, and you can start to pull them into place. This is also a good place for you to break all that stuff off, and so be careful with it. Next, what we need to do is we're going to fold this to the back. We're going to place a thread wrap right on the front side of that, and then we're going to work our thread forward in a nice fashion. And as I'm doing this, again, a lot of these are just different little things that you can do, and you do what works best for you, colors that work best for you. Again, bucktail would work fantastic here. Use different colors of bucktail. Okay, so what we really want to do is we want to make sure that this is going to be our body wrap. So we have our tail in place, we have our rib in place, and this is going to be our body wrap. And we want to make sure that this body wrap really stays in place. So I'm just going to take some super glue and run it across the top here, maybe a little bit of the sides, and just give it a second to move around the sides. Sorry, my throat's getting dry. I got to drink of water real quick. Okay, sorry. I get to talking so much that I get thirsty. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting that undone. That we're moving these in opposite directions. So, and you can really go either way. Now, what a lot of people would say is the correct way, right? Air quotes. And it's the way that you're almost 99.9% of the time seeing is that your rib's going to come clockwise up and over. And therefore, your body wrap's going to come counterclockwise. Again, this is up to you. Maybe you come across a situation where you have to go the other direction. Honestly, it's not a big deal. So what we want to do is we want to flatten these out. You can take them and just draw them until they flatten out as much as possible. And you see I've got this little brown spot right in the back. Don't worry about that. That's gonna be there anyway when we're getting ready to wrap this rib. And we want to flatten these out, and we're just gonna try to line these up so that we're either slightly over wrapping. You can do that if you want. That kind of gives it the fly some not drawing a blank. It gives it some love, right? Like it makes it look more like a bug, because bugs are like they're in and they're out. If you look through the individual ribbing. Sorry, I'm forgetting the word. I'm drawing a blank. I got too many things rolling through my mind. And so as we work forward, if you're having a hard time with this, just place your finger right on top. Come in, grab that, straighten it all back out, just gently. Now, another thing that you may need to do here is soften these up in water. And a good way to do that is find some kind of clip that you can use and get like a big cup of warm water and just put your deer hair tip side, so you're pinching at the tips like this, and you just stick it down in that warm water so that you can get it out and they stay together, because otherwise pulling it out of that warm water it's a real chore. Been there, done that. Don't recommend the vacation. So we're just going to continue to work forward. Excuse me. And you don't have to use your finger, but if you need to, do it. And we're just going to work this guy right up until we get to the back of this thorax where we have our cutoff point. And you can try to work that up and over. It doesn't usually work out very well because you can see the size difference. Now, you need to tie this off on the underside so that the tie-off point's down below. It works out much better, and it's going to really work out much better on the next go-around. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to place one full turn right here at the butt, and what we want to do is kind of draw these tail fibers out and just pinch them in place and hold them, so as we come around, we're locking them in right in the back. And now we can proceed to start to wrap this guy forward. On something like this, I really like to make my wraps get ever so slightly bigger as they move forward. That's kind of like the normal abdomen look on a bug. All right, and we just finish this off right here. I'll tie this off again on top. Fold it over. Thread splitting. And now we can get rid of the deer hair and the tag. Okay, so if you followed along to this point, this whole back end of this fly is done the same way this one is. That's why I already tied the second one in the back. The only difference is the wing is now going to go on this one, which we'll do next. So the reason I like to do, pardon me, but the reason I like to do this one is because it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit more convenient, but there's some downsides to it. If you're not careful, the thread is going to cut right through this wing. So what we need to do is start to lift this wing up and pull it back to open it up. So as I'm opening it up, you can see we want to pull it all directions just to get it to open up. Kind of like so. And we're going to place some more thread wraps up front right into that post. And so when I'm pulling down, I'm pulling this way to keep this flared up and open. Now, the cool thing about doing it this way is that you can change your thorax color really easy. On the next one, you won't be able to do that so easy. But what we have to do is get this to stay open. So as we're picking and pulling it out, to get it to stay open kind of like this, what we want to do is try to get our thread flat as possible. And we're going to figure eight this by coming up underneath and just take your thread and wind it and wiggle it, is what I'm trying to say, not wind it. Wiggle it through until you find that crease. And you have to kind of help it to keep it up. Okay, this is going to help start to lock this wing in place on top like this. Now, if you pull down here, you're going to start to slice this wing. So we're going to come from the back to the front, up and over, grab the wing and get some more thread wraps in front. So kind of like we did the divided wings, now we're dealing with shank and not wing. And this really helps keep everything locked into place. So what we got to do here now is, because this wing is not super stable at this point, is we're going to put some glue in here and cue the Jeopardy music so that it has time to go down there, and use this to just kind of force it to the back. And other than that, we don't really want to play with it too much other than just keeping it upside down for the moment. And then what we're going to do, or while this is setting, I should say, we're going to go to our deer hair, and we're going to get deer hair dubbing. Now, we did this back in week 3 with the first emerger, and the reason I didn't pick the deer hair out of this particular hide is because I just don't have much of it, and I wanted to save it for this because I knew it was going to look good. So we want to come in and get some deer hair under fur, and you don't need much here, and you don't have to do this. This is just kind of for fun to show you, inspire you that you can do these things. Get creative with the materials that you have. Okay, and now what we're going to do is wax our thread. And we'll go ahead and dub this on. And we're basically done with the fly at this point. We're going to dub this thorax. We're going to figure eight it the best we can. If you got some stuff that hangs out underneath, it's not a big deal. So we're tying this one on a 14. That's what you're using if you bought a material kit. Is a 14. Now, on these clink hammers like this, the clink hammers are typically much bigger hooks in general. So you can actually get this guy down to maybe a 20 and not have too much problem doing it this way, if you just kind of follow these techniques. So we're going to kind of start to work this around. If you trap a couple fibers, no big deal. Again, you don't even necessarily have to dub this either. You just leave that body thread or that thorax just in thread. So we got something kind of like that. Looks about the same on the other side. Let's see if I can get just a little bit more and sneak it in. Some deer hair has a lot of under fur, and so hopefully if you come across some of that, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a pain and this and that and the other. Hopefully now you look at that and you're like, man, that's going to make a great fly. You know what I mean? It's good stuff. You just don't see people using it often. Everyone seems to get caught up in all the new materials that are out the gate and this and that and the other. But this classic stuff works well too. Okay, if you got a few hairs or fibers trapped down underneath, honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much because they're just going to look like legs when it's all said and done. So I get that right in place. Oh, come on, you. Okay. And now, oops. There we go. And now bring your thread, ooh, that deer hair in my mouth, to right behind the eye, and we're just going to build the head. And then after I do this, normally I would whip this, but I'm just going to go ahead and move along. There we go. Oh. Okay, so that's how we do a haystacker or a hackle stacker without using a dubbing loop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video for just a second, and I'll see, but actually you won't know, I'll see you in just a second, but we're going to move over. I'm going to put this back into the fly that we already did on the vise, and now we're going to do it in a dubbing loop, which makes I think personally, a way more durable fly, and it looks really good. I'll tease it here real quick. To me, that looks good. It looks like a hot mess. It doesn't look perfect. It looks perfectly imperfect. So anyway, give me just a second. We'll do this one. Okay, so I'm going to move right into the wing. We already created the dubbing loop on the last one to put the rib in. I've got another dubbing loop ready to roll that's right at the back of this. Now, to make this work effectively, you really want some kind of twister, whether it's heavy-weighted, like a heavy-weighted spinner, sorry, tongue-tied, or if it's an actual dubbing twister where it's a little longer shaft on the tool. But we want to make sure that's waxed up. And I'm going to actually get this out of the way. And I've already tried to shoot this numerous times because this is really difficult. I've only got about 7 inches to work between the fly and the camera. So when we pull this out of the slide, no, it's not focusing. What you want to do is pinch those hairs just like so that they start to open up in the back. And then you want to pinch the back so they open back up in the front. And we're just going to play this game until they start to, oh, sorry, I'm just literally lifting these back up. I'm trying to get that one hair that's busted. We just want to play this game until they're nice and open as much as possible. and what you can actually manage in your fingers. Now, I'm sure some of you are going like, why don't you use a clip? Well, I do use clips quite often, but a clip on doing this I found to be it's very difficult. So when we're placing this into our dubbing loop, one of the main things is we want to make sure this doesn't maneuver and move around. And we want these tips to stay as even as possible. So we want to get this up, and we only want, I'll show you. You can kind of see that distance. We're basically where the tan hair is, or the golden hair is. That's basically what we're shooting for, is that. So I'm going to slide this up, and the wax loves to grab that deer hair. Okay, I'm going to pinch it close, and this is really hard to do because it wants to move on me. You need to get a long pair of scissors. This is the part where I have the problem, and we got to cut this close. I'm going to do the best I can and show you. I may just pull those out because I don't think I can make another cut. Okay, so we got something like this. It's kind of as finicky as working with guard hair, except guard hair doesn't want to bend quite as much. And what we want to do is have as little of this sticking out the back as possible. I'll show you why real quick. So the more of this that you have sticking out the back of the thread, you can see where the lumps come into the wing, because this is what we're going to do. The lumps come into that wing, and it's a real chore to get them out, even if you can get them out. And I don't know, maybe you want that. It makes the fly look buggy. I mean, I'm not trying to discourage you from doing this. It's just a pain. But it holds the deer hair way better than the previous method. You don't run the risk of cutting the hair while trying to wrap it in. So I'm trying to concentrate and talk. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to try to gently just kind of tap all this a little closer so we don't have that. And if you got a little gap up top, don't worry about that. What we're looking for here is just that the hair is separated fairly well. That's pretty good. I got a little gap there, but it shouldn't make much difference. Okay, so we're going to twist this up. There we go. And if you're not comfortable using dubbing loops, I've got dubbing loop videos that you can go back and look at. And putting deer hair into a dubbing loop can be a real challenge. Okay, so now we're going to go get our little hackle pliers, and we're just going to clip onto the thread. And then we're going to cut the dubbing loop out at the bottom. I know you can't see that, but that's what I'm doing. Okay. So now we've got this. So what we want to do is lick your fingers. We're going to start to draw this one way. It wants to roll. You can see it's wanting to twist and turn. Do your best to try to get all of that deer hair facing the same direction. This would be considered like doubling a hackle. If you ever come across that term, doubling a hackle is taking literally a feather and doing the same thing. Okay, but now you can see, if I can get it twisted for you, the amount of hair that's sticking out the backside of that loop is very, very small. And that plays into what we want to do for two reasons. One, because this will allow us to dub the thorax if we want. And two, it leaves out those clumps like I showed you. So what we need to do is go ahead and spin that thread up and just kind of let it ride for a minute. When I finish doing this, I'm just trying to pull it all together. Plus, when you do this and you double this hair over, you'll know if it's actually being held in your dubbing loop. And this is why I can tell you candidly that this will make your hair wing that we're building more durable, because it's not going to come out. So we want to wrap our little gap. We want to start right back here in the thorax. We don't want to leave a little gap, because a lot of the times what will happen is this wing gets messy, and we don't want to leave room for error. So if you make it super clean, which you can, I have done, it's really tough though. We want to make sure that we have room to dub. Okay, so we want all of this facing towards the back as we wrap, and it's going to start to flare out a little bit, which is what we want. And as we come across, you'll see how hair is starting to move out front. Just stop, lick your fingers, pull it, and then place the next wrap right next to it. Now as we do this, each time you want to bring your fingers up from the bottom, both sides, and pull up into the back. So I'll stop on the bottom, and you can already start to see it forming. And you want to hold those in place as you make your next wrap. And if you get really good at this, I'll try to show you. If you get really good at this, it's hard to do, but I'll show you if I can. So we're putting all this up top so that haystack is staying up top. Work that to the back. So when you get down to this last little bit, you can actually take all of this hair, lift it up, but you're going to have to twist this so that the hair comes out to the side, and you can wrap it along the base. And as you're doing this, like each quarter turn, in reality, you're lifting this up and you're exposing the base of that wing. And you'll feel it pop up. If it pops up, you got to back off, because you've got to keep it down. Otherwise the hair will flare and your thread will ride up. See, it didn't work out there. Too much on the bottom. This is a advanced technique. It's not the friendliest, but if you want to challenge yourself, I wanted to make sure to show you. And it's tough. It's one of the tougher maneuvers I've seen. There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go. So that way, if you do all this just right. Oh, it didn't. Okay. You kind of saw. I can't turn it to the side until I do it. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay. And once you come in front, we just have to capture the thread. Now the way to do this is rotate your dubbing loop around your thread, lift up, pull down, and bring your bobbin over. And that's going to lock it all into place, just like that. One turn. You can trim out your hackle pliers. Okay, and now, if you need to, or if you can, that's actually the real trick. If you can, and keep all this up top, then you can come dub underneath. But personally, I think having all these little bits of hair exposed on the bottom looks really cool, because it actually is kind of mimicking legs. But you can bring it underneath one more time. If you need to, and just push down on it like so, and it should pop back open. Right, and so there's not, in this case, there's not much need to really do much with the bottom of this. Okay, let's wet whip and call it gravy. And then we will move over to the parachute. So, but yeah, there's two ways to do it. Sorry, I can actually make these look a little bit nicer, but it's a real chore trying to do this with the camera in the way and only literally 7 inches of room to work. It's hard. It's really, I know I complain about it. I'm not trying to complain about it, but but it's tough. So it cuts out half my dexterity, at least. It's hard to sneak scissors in and get your arms right where you need them to go. So I did the best I could showing this technique with that kind of space. Maybe one day I can actually change my setup. But so there you go. And now this wing is way more durable than the other one. And it's got just that, hey, I'm a bug and I'm exploding out of my former self look. And it really holds the shape. It's nice and buggy. It'll fish all day long. And you'll get a bunch of likes for it if you can pull it off. So, all right. There's the first fly. And other than that, let's move over to the parachute. And we'll do that here in just a second. Okay, final fly for the session. And literally we've done every technique already that we're going to use on this. We've already covered all of them. There's nothing new here. The only thing new is just the way we're going to put them all together. So I've got my clean camera in. And I want to start my thread a solid 2 or 3 bodkin widths back. We need this room up front. It's going to get very, very crowded up front. Don't shortchange yourself on this. You'll be better off having your post back here at the bend than you are having it too close to that eye. And it can cause problems. So, just like we did on the previous fly on that Hackle stacker, I'm going to get some gold Flashabou to use as a tip down below. Sorry, I got some random bug crawling up my arm there. I'm going to drop this down underneath and just bring it back down. And while we're tying this, I just want to take a second and thank everybody for following along. It's been a lot of fun. We'll get a new session going here soon, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that before we get out of here at the very, very end. So again, my Flashabou slid off. That's okay. We're going to add more than we really need, and that way we can define where we want that specifically. Just like we talked about, maybe you want a long, shiny tip. Maybe you don't. Totally up to you. And different fishing situations may call for different things, and I just like having the options available to me to adjust accordingly. And I've got a couple wraps in. Same thing we just did on the previous fly. Come in here, trim that out up front. Oh, sticking to me. And now we're just going to wrap this guy coming forward. We are going to use a different material. But other than that, we've already... And it's just a substitute for something we've already used. So, okay, we got to make our dubbing loop. We got to put that rib in. You don't even actually have to do this. It's good practice. And, if you decide once you've made the body or wrapped the body or you change your mind or whatever, you can just clip the tag out at the end. So now here we can kind of decide, like, okay, I'm up pretty high. Plus it locks that Flashabou in going the opposite direction. Like so. Okay. So if you bought a material kit, you've got a feather that looks like this. This is just a turkey wing. This happens to be a secondary. So the fibers are much softer. I didn't have a large selection to go through, so I don't remember if I made them all secondaries or not. But so if it's a primary, these will be much more rigid and stiff, and you're going to get more of that wrapped quill body look, and that's fine too. Otherwise, on the secondary, sometimes it can come in kind of fuzzy and make a fuzzy body, and that's fine too. So I'm just going to pull out about 4 barbs here, just to make sure it's super easy to wrap. And we're going to tie these in just a minute. I almost forgot my tail. Got eager. So same tail that we did on the Hackle stacker. I've just clipped out some fibers. I'm going to leave them sporadic, pull out the short ones, maybe get rid of any wonky ones. You can kind of rub them and move them back and forth in your fingers to adjust the length. You can decide how many you want. You can pull some, reset them. Play around with it, see what you like. And you just decide how long you want them. That's up to you. As we come over the top, we'll do 2 wraps. This time, we're going to wrap this guy coming in all the way forward. Now you can spiral wrap. All you got to do is, I guess we didn't quite do this technique, but you can just kind of gently hold them in place, leaving it on top of the shank until we get back to where we started our thread. Okay, so I was off by 1 technique. It's sometimes it gets complicated to remember every single thing we go over. So now I'll go back to my slip of turkey. And personally, I like to just cut the tips out. You don't have to, but you're gonna have to anyway. And I just prefer to get rid of any geef that's coming up front, so that I can go ahead and tie these in nicely along the side. Just bring them down and come back forward with them. You can pre-build a taper into this fly if you want. I do recommend that you super glue the base of it. So just like that, just like we've done before, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is if you've got a stiff quill off a primary feather, most people want to follow the actual wrap itself. So kind of like how we crisscrossed on the Hackle stacker, more often than not on an actual quill, you're wanting to actually come forward in the same direction with the thread and lay it in between. Whoa, about lost it there. Lay it in between the little fibers. You can see them starting to stick up. And the reason they're starting to stick up is just because I'm using the underneath side of the feather. And we do not want to encroach on that front side. I don't quite have that yet. There we go. Thought I was about to lose it and have to restart the video. Actually, I'm going to go to my fingernail clippers here. Let's get that out of there. So you've got this kind of fuzzy video. The camera doesn't actually pick it up. It makes it look way more of a obscure mess than otherwise. Go ahead and just put your finger on your tail, hold it in place. Now we start to wrap this guy forward, go in the same direction. And it helps hold the body together. You could put super glue on your thread rib if you wanted. Totally up to you. And so now we've got something that looks about like that. I know it looks kind of funky, but I'll turn it around so you can kind of see it. It looks better on that side. For whatever reason, there's a few fibers here that make this whole side look deteriorated, but hey, it's a fly. It'll work. So next what we need to do is revisit that tilt wing that everybody loves so much. And believe me, I heard all kinds of comments about that, and I knew normally I would actually have put this back in week 5. The only reason I didn't, I think I mentioned this once before, the only reason I didn't is because it's a downwing tie-in, and so I try to keep similar points together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and measure that up, pinch, pull over, 2, drop, let it seat, pull up. Now, one thing we didn't do on the first one, I'm going to wrap to the back here, not to the front, because we need to make sure we have room up front. But one thing you can do, which we have done, is just lift a few fibers up at a time, wrap through. You just got to be careful because you're going to encroach on that eye super fast. But what this does, besides encroaching on the eye super fast, is it can help eliminate the need to individually wrap the sides. So if you remember back in week 2, I'm talking about how we pull these around to start to build the base. Okay, now you can still do that, and it does help keep your eye clear, but you don't have to do that. You can just actually leave it be. Or you can do a combination of both. I'll do a combination of both just for funsies, but you don't have to do that. It does help. That's just an easier way to get into these tilt wings. So we have clearly defined front and back wings. Again, you can lick your fingers and everything and separate them like we did in week 2. I was just trying to show you different techniques that are used to create these things and make it a little bit easier, or hopefully make it a little bit easier for you to manage that, especially in week 2, where I'm sure everybody wanted to shoot me there and I had to pull out the body armor type thing. So all we're going to do is lift these up together. You want to try to start at the top and not let it slide down. The wing wants to move. That's what it does. Okay. But it'll lock in place as soon as we get it back and where it needs to be. So it still wants to move. The wiggly jiggly, it's just the way it is. And this time, we didn't do this in week 2, but this time I am going to get rid of this front part, but I'm also going to place a thread wrap over, so I'm pinching that wing and just placing a thread wrap over to help keep it divided and just get this thread out the way. And if you need to, you can put some thread placements in and wedge that so that everything's getting shoved to the back. Again, that's up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and clip this out. So I'm going to get my scissors in place, collect everything so it doesn't fall everywhere. There we go. And again, the big thing with the tilt wing is it's tilted up. So if you need to put another thread wrap in so it kind of tilts to the back, cool. If you don't want to do that, cool. And this is going to be optional. You're not going to have to keep that there. And we'll show you both. So what I like to do here is go ahead and dub the back end of that thorax. Since it's open, it's clean. And you want to go ahead and put some glue on the bottom side like we talked about back in week 2. Just to help it get down into that shank. We're going to give it a minute. We're actually pretty close to being done with this fly. We're well over the halfway point. No need to stop and re-explain myself every time. I think we've pretty well covered everything in there. A lot of the most common techniques that are used for deer hair wings, and quite honestly, a lot of people don't even make deer hair wings anymore, but it's a tried and true thing that has been used for a long, long time. And so these techniques have been around for very, very long. It's not something I just created or made up. We do want to give that just another few seconds to really soak in, just to help keep that to the bottom. And you can see, again, like I was talking about in that previous fly, where we want to have the bottom kind of flush. So, okay. And that just helps. Now you can wax your dubbing here. You can add whatever kind of dubbing you want here. I'm just going to go back to that chocolate hairs mask. You could use deer hair dubbing, whatever you want. All the colors and everything. Whatever's going to suit your needs the best. But by doing it this way, see, everything's up out of my way, and I can work right back onto the back side. And matter of fact, you can actually come to the front too on this particular one and just basically get that entire bottom side dubbed right up front. We don't have to wait. And then you can see how it starts to hold this in place better. And so next we're going to move to, again, our dubbing loop. And we are going to just kind of jump it. The nice thing about using colors that match is you can actually throw some thread wraps over that dubbing. And since it's matching in color, if you get a thread wrap exposed or whatever, it's not a super big deal. Okay. All right. It's time to get the wax out and the dubbing twister or spinner. And I do not have my other wing portion proportioned yet. It's going to be the same thing we just did on that last fly, because we are building the parachute. Technique stays the same. Pinch it, clean it out. Let me get it clean and I'll do the other part in front again just so you can see it again. So, yeah, if you've enjoyed the session, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think, where you'd like to see us go with some of these classes, and how they progress. Maybe they progress too much for you. Maybe they don't progress quick enough. All that stuff's good feedback, you know, so just let me know. I'm always interested to hear from you and what you want to see. I literally make these videos just primarily for the Fly Tying for Beginners Facebook group, and not try to, I mean, I don't add descriptions hardly ever or anything. I'm not super interested in trying to grow that channel to be some like rock star channel or something. I just do it to try to help out. Push others along and push me along. Okay, stack it once more. Okay. Okay, so again, you've got we got the tips pinched. You just want to kind of come to the back and pinch, and it's going to open up, and then you pinch the front again. Let it open up again. You just play this game until it starts to open up. Now, a lot of the times it's going to kind of twist on you a little bit, and that really just has to do because your fingers bend, right? And so don't worry about it too much. But as long as you can kind of get it fairly open and we can start to manipulate it, then you're in good shape. Oops. Did not mean to do that. I'm going to twist this here. Okay. So I'm going to line this up again so that my deer hair is kind of right at that blonder section. Uh-oh, don't do it. Don't do it. I was about to fall out on me. I just want to kind of separate it as best as possible. And then come in and trim this. If I can get my fingers in here, my hand needs to be right where that camera is. That's why sometimes it is an issue shooting some of these videos, because I just, man, again, I don't like complaining about it, but sometimes it's a real pain. because I can't do it the way I normally would do it. Okay, that's not bad. So I'm going to tap some of this back forward. Again, kind of like we talked about on the Hackle stacker, the shorter the gap on the other side of the thread makes it a little bit easier. And it doesn't build up as much. Okay. That was a good start. We'll twist it again. There we go. One more time. I want to make sure that's nice and twisted up. There we go. Now, I did have my, there they are, Hackle pliers. So I'm going to pinch these on and trim out the thread. But I really hope everyone's enjoyed this session. And I really do. I mean that. Okay. So we got this whole big bushy mess. Same thing, lick your fingers. We want to try to draw it one direction. Keeping it from spinning is another story. But we want to try to draw it all one direction. Okay. And wrapping this deer hair as a hackle is much easier because we have a pre-built post in, and we're not relying on the hair itself to be the post, because that wants to slip off, and until you get your extra wraps in, it can be a real challenge. Okay, so we want to keep the flat side, or the flatter side, into the base of the wing, just like any other parachute. Start up top, and as you work yourself around, just lift up. Make sure you're sneaking all that underneath. Oh boy, that hackle came out awfully big. That's okay. And we're going to take that last wrap, just thread, because we're already here doing the fly's work, doing the king's work. We're going to sneak that guy right up on underneath. And we're going to try to keep things from being trapped underneath. Now, if you do get some trapped underneath, just leave them. Quite honestly, it just looks like legs. And so you can kind of see how we've actually kind of got that hackle stacker look again. We're going to fix that. Now, you should be up pretty close to the eye at this point, and so just cross over your thread and the dubbing loop a few times. And then what I like to do, if I can, just to make this simple. Sometimes it can be hard to finagle all this. Everything in hand. Okay. Do a double half hitch. Shove that guy right in the back. Pull down and do another one. And so now that we've twisted that around our thread and we've done 2 double half hitches, we can actually just trim this out. Oh man, I got close again. I gotta keep this guy further back. It's a challenge. I'm covering my eye just a fuzz. Let's see if I can fix it. Okay, I got enough room. Okay. And now we can actually just whip finish. And you can wet whip this here too. I'm so close to that eye though that I think I want to refrain from doing that. I'm already on top of the eye on this one. Pull to the back. And it popped. Okay, good. So, now we just got to actually build the wing, or build the hackle. And you can start to see it forming together. And you can take a bigger pair of scissors, open them up, go around the wing, and just start to push down. You can use your fingers if you want. I'm just trying to show this because it's just something else you can do. Some people have, arthritis in their fingers and all kinds of stuff. So I'm just trying to show different ways that can actually make this a little bit easier. And if you want to leave that tilt wing in, then by all means go for it. You can just leave the fly like that. And if you don't, then you just pinch. You come in right up top. And you trim that guy out. Okay, and now you can really pinch down. Just like so. And I did save the eye. Just barely, but I saved it. Okay, so the only other thing that you really need to do here is you do need, I can't recommend this highly enough, is you do need to take super glue. You could use UV resin, I guess, if you wanted to. It just adds a little bit more weight than I think is necessary, but you want to make sure we're tapping the center of that so that all that post stays down, and let it leach down into the fly so that you've got this parachute that comes out like this. And if you got that long one, just pop them out. There you go. Okay, that's it. I'm going to get this camera turned around here in just a second. But that's the fly. And yeah, it's all the same techniques we've already used dating back to week 1. All put together to make this parachute. So give me just a second here and I'll flip the camera around. And that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed the session. Again, drop a few comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see going forward. If there's something specific that you need help with, or if you have found this video and you're not a part of Fly Tying for Beginners over on Facebook, I very much invite you to become a part of the group. Answer the questions. That's your golden ticket in. It just helps us make sure that you're not a bot. We don't take or sell your information or anything. I don't care. I just want to make sure that we're keeping scammers and stuff out the best we can. And also make sure to come over and join us over at Fly Vault. We're building an archive. We're in pursuit of building the largest fly index ever. And so please feel free to come over. It's free to join. And you can contribute and help that way. And we've got some fun stuff we're looking at doing over there to kind of change things up. Other than that, everybody, again, I really just hope you enjoyed the session. And I guess I'll end it as always. Take care, everybody. Happy tying, and I'll see you next time.